So, just as I thought things were starting to calm down, the Orange McNugget has now threatened to block the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge. He basically said he's not going to allow the bridge to open until Ottawa treats the United States with fairness and respect that we deserve. Like, what the actual hell? I mean, you can see in the next paragraph here, it says the bridge is being funded by the Canadian government, but will be publicly owned by both Canada and Michigan. I really don't know what to say about this man-child, but I'm going to talk about it in today's video. I'm also going to talk about WestJet canceling more routes to the United States. And I'm happy to see this. And I fully expect more reports like these for 2026. And for those of you watching from British Columbia, I have an update from G, who I interviewed a little while ago, who is based in Skagit County. He helped to send over some photos of Bellis Fair. And I'm sure those of you from the Lower Mainland know where Bellis Fair is. So we're going to take a look at some of these pictures that he sent over to me. The backdrop for today's video comes from Sir Sharkus from our Discord server. And he took this photo at the very top of Mont Saint-Hilaire. Did I say that right, Sharkus? Thanks for posting these in the Discord server, and it was really nice chatting with you. And for those of you who might not be in the Discord server yet and would like to chat with the rest of your community members, I'll leave a link in the description below, as well as in the pinned comments. Now, just a quick update on the petition to have ICE removed from Canada. It's now at 2,491 signatures at the time I'm editing this video. Now, I read somewhere in the comments that someone mentioned that other content creators are also promoting this. So together we can get as many signatures as we can and have this discussed in Parliament. So if you haven't signed it yet or you would like to read it over, it will also be in the description below as well as in the pinned comments. And last thing, if you're new to my channel and you want to hear more from a Canadian perspective, help my channel out by hitting that subscribe button below, because it really does help to get this Canadian message out to more people. Okay, so let's get to the update from Bellingham that we're not going to hear from the Bellingham media. Now what you're looking at right now is the parking lot of Bellis Fair. And for those of you not in BC or not aware of this area, Bellis Fair is about maybe a 20 to 25 minute drive from the Peace Arch border. Now back in the 90s, 2000s, and even the 2010s, this parking lot would be covered with BC plates. And I remember there was a time, I think probably the late 2000s, where the Bellingham residents were actually very annoyed that Canadians were coming down. And basically they were saying that we were driving up their prices. Some of the residents were so pissed off that they even left a note on my car as well as 6 others saying, "Go back to effing Canada." Now this was back in like 2011, maybe 2012, at the old Costco location, so not this parking lot. I didn't think much of it back then, and I just kind of threw away the note, but I'm definitely thinking about it now, which is why I don't have very much sympathy when I see these photos of Bellis Fair. I spent a lot of money here, and even a lot of time. Looking back at it, I probably shouldn't have, but it was just a fun thing to do over the weekend. You cross the Peace Arch border, maybe pick up a package, fill up on gas, head down to Bellis Fair maybe for lunch, do a bit of shopping, head to Trader Joe's, and maybe even a little bit further to the Seattle Premium Outlets. And if my wife and I or my friends decided to do an overnight in Seattle, we go even farther. But that's definitely a thing in the past for me. And looking at these photos, you can tell Bellis Fair is struggling. Now to be fair, even before the Orange McNugget came into the office, Bellis Fair was already struggling. And I'm sure there's other malls in the US that were also experiencing the same thing as well. But even though it was already a dying mall, there were still Canadians coming here to visit and spending their money. I remember doing a previous report where some of these businesses in Bellingham were saying that Canadians were up to 50% of their customers. Well, I'm pretty sure it's not 50% anymore. So I'm really thankful that G sent these photos over, because we're never going to see pictures like this from the US media. So for everyone watching right now from the Lower Mainland or in BC, and you used to frequent Bellingham and Bellis Fair, I hope this gives you guys an update on what our boycott is actually doing. Thanks, G, for sending these over. And if you have any more photos, feel free to send them over to me. Now moving on to the next topic. WestJet has just announced that they're canceling a lot of routes to the United States. Let's take a look at this first report.
WestJet will suspend service between Vancouver and select U.S. destinations as travel patterns and behaviors shift. WestJet says transborder travel between Canada and the United States saw a notable decrease last year, and numbers continue to decrease this year. As a result, service between Vancouver and San Francisco, Boston, and San Diego will be suspended for the summer. Demand for domestic travel continues to be high, so WestJet has increased flights between Vancouver and Halifax by 265%.
Now this is just reporting out of Vancouver. WestJet is canceling other flights from other Canadian airports as well. I'll get into more on those in a minute. But being that I'm from Vancouver, I have flown WestJet to San Francisco quite often, of course in the past. But for them to cancel that route, especially when San Francisco has a lot of business travelers going as well, it speaks volumes. Now let's take a look at the other routes that are also canceled too. In this post, it says WestJet to cancel 8 routes: Calgary to Raleigh, Vancouver to Boston, Vancouver to San Francisco, Vancouver to San Diego, Edmonton to Chicago, YEG, Edmonton to San Francisco, Edmonton to Seattle, Toronto to Los Angeles. Now, some of these are major routes, like Toronto to Los Angeles. You would expect that one to continue on. For me, I'm actually surprised YVR to San Francisco is canceled. But times are changing, and at least our Canadian airlines are realizing that. So they're going to have to figure out where these planes are going to be redirected to. But as I was editing this video, one of our longtime viewers named Andre actually sent me another article, and it looks like it's actually 11 routes that are canceled. From this screenshot here, it looks like Halifax to Orlando, Vancouver to Nashville, and Winnipeg to Nashville have been added. But regardless, we're only 10 days into February, and we're already starting to see the summer schedule to the United States being cut. And let's not forget, the frequency to some of these US destinations have already been cut. Now let's just use something for an example. Let's say Toronto to New York used to have like 6 daily flights. They may have cut down to like 4 or 3 or whatever else. So there already is a decrease in terms of travel to the United States. And I'm not an expert here, but my gut is telling me that we're going to hear more cancellations coming up soon. Now, for any US border town that's crying that the Canadians are not coming back, well, maybe you should fix this problem, which is your president. He's now threatening to ensure that the new bridge, the Gordie Howe International Bridge, will not be open until we show them respect or something like that. Anyway, let's just watch it.
U.S. President Donald Trump is making a new threat against Canada tonight, taking aim at a new border crossing. The Gordie Howe Bridge will connect Windsor, Ontario and Detroit, and it's set to open this year. But Trump is threatening to block it, claiming the bridge was built with no American materials. The bridge was fully funded by Canada's federal government, but now Trump is demanding the U.S. be, quote, fully compensated.
Okay, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm definitely missing something here. If Canada paid for the whole thing, what does the United States want to be compensated for? For not using US materials? I don't get this one. I really don't. If you do understand this, maybe put it in the comments so I can read it.
Katie Nicholson has been following all of this as it develops from Washington. Katie?
Yeah, it's not clear what in particular prompted this post tonight, but here's the key part that caught an awful lot of people in Windsor and Detroit off guard. Trump writing, "I will not allow this bridge to open until the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given them. And also importantly, Canada treats the United States with the fairness and respect that we deserve. We will start negotiations immediately with all that we have given them. We should own perhaps at least 1/2 of this asset."
Okay, I don't know what I'm missing here, but in this screenshot that I showed earlier, it clearly states the bridge is being funded by Canadian government, us, but will publicly be owned by both Canada and Michigan. What am I missing here? Is Michigan not part of the United States?
Now, the $6.4 billion price tag on the Gordie Howe Bridge was fully funded by the Canadian government, but it is under the joint ownership, kind of a structure between Canada and Michigan. It was built because of the need for more cross-border traffic options beyond the Ambassador Bridge, which of course is nearing 100 years old. In fact, the owners of the Ambassador Bridge had previously taken out TV ads against building the Gordie Howe Bridge back in 2018 and argued that it had the exclusive right to collect tolls in the area. So it was going to open back in 2024. I was actually at a ceremony 2 years ago when they linked the U.S. and Canadian sides of the bridge. And it was this big celebration of cooperation between our countries.
Well, cooperation is not a word that we're using anymore. Don't you wish you can go back to like the days where like things were normal? Now I get it. People are going to say, yeah, it was never normal and the U.S. has always looked down on us. But I'm talking about a normal state where we would be able to travel to the U.S. and be comfortable and, well, not know about being safe, but just going back to normal times. Maybe this channel is starting to get to me. But what I'm trying to say is, does anybody else wish we can go back to times like this where our government, we're speaking to each other and joking with each other like this?
Our relationship is so remarkable precisely because it seems so unremarkable, which is why Americans often are surprised when our favorite American actor or singer turns out to be Canadian.
If you ask me, these were good times, and I think a lot of us miss it. Instead, what we're getting now is this kind of bullshit.
Economic force. because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it.
Even with that chipmunk voice, I still can't stand him. But I think it's hard for me to realize that, in my lifetime at least, I will never look at the United States the same way again. I apologize, everyone. I just went off on a little bit of a tangent. But seeing the video earlier of the two sides of the bridge meeting together and celebrating, it kind of brought back memories of when our governments were able to be on joking terms. Now, anything the US government says to me is a threat. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with me that anytime the US government says anything, you're already in a defensive position? At least I know I am.
Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens tonight called Trump's post insane, but was also careful not to overreact.
And so we know Donald Trump is volatile. We know he's created an environment of uncertainty. I'm sure we'll get over the speed hump here on this issue as well. It's one of the frustrations we have to deal with. And, the faster we can get to the midterms and hopefully see a change, the better for all of us.
And Adrian, it's important to remember here, this is not a law, this is not an executive order, this is a post on social media, at least in this moment in time. And it's also important to keep in mind that this is happening as Canada and the U.S. are rocketing toward those summer deadlines on CUSMA renegotiations. So there could be some positioning here.
Sure, it's not an executive order yet. And, he's just bitching on True Social, right? Now, some Canadians are probably going to say, you know what, once he's gone, everything's going to be back to normal. But every time he does stupid shit like this, we can't forget what we saw. And I'm going to remember that there's 20,000 people that actually like this post. So long after Trump is gone, things are not going to be the same for me when it comes to the United States.
And Katie, it seems Canada's been finding some support on the U.S. side of the border from Democratic politicians.
Yeah, Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin posted this, saying that the Gordie Howe Bridge is an incredibly important infrastructure project and that President Trump's threat tonight to tank it is awful for our state's economy. Canceling this project will have serious repercussions, higher costs for Michigan businesses, less secure supply chains, and ultimately fewer jobs. And Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer's office also sharply reminded the public Canada financed the bridge, and her office said it's going to open one way or the other, and the governor looks forward to attending that ribbon-cutting ceremony.
Maybe that's just what we got to do. Keep doing what we're doing and just ignore the man-child. I mean, it's great to see support from south of the border on this topic, but I can't ignore the people that support him and also supported his post on this. Now, I want to move on to some of our community posts. And again, I want to show posts that are from the global community. The first one is from Gary. Australian here. I want the world order to change. I want the US removed from dominance and a more level world with more equal nations. The US has ridden on the backs of the world for too long. Time for a better system that doesn't allow one nation to sit on top, spending trillions and refusing to pay its debt. It's great to see citizens around the world really seeing the US for what it is right now. The support that we get globally, for my channel and as well as for Canadians, it should make every Canadian proud. This next one's from Red. Sweet here. I used to have a ton of respect for the US. It felt like even at their worst, they were still, for the most part, on the good side and stood up for democratic values. I have since lost any and all respect I ever had for them. It's to the point where the defense treaty we signed with the US, when Turkey and Hungary wanted to feel tough and blocked our NATO application, where we allowed them to access some kind of our bases, brings me genuine stress. Because how do we know the next batch of soldiers that show up aren't going to be our enemies? How do we know they're not here to do some sort of reconnaissance or sabotage for some kind of future operation to liberate us or put us in our place? I know it's unlikely, but these days it feels like everything horrible is possible. Greetings from Sweden. I totally get what you mean. Mainly because of the fact that the US administration is so radical right now that we really don't know how far they're going to go. Some call me paranoid or a fear-mongering channel, but I'm not going to sit here and be unprepared. Thanks, Red, for your message, and appreciate the support from Sweden. And I do hope Canada purchases the Gripen jets. Now, this last one's a bit of a fun one. It's from Lee Potts 1696, who says, Sweetie, you have dyslexia. Just own it. Lots of us have it. Glad you don't edit it out because it makes you real like the rest of us. We all have something. It's just a piece of you that makes you you. Embrace it. And I can guarantee it bugs you more than it bugs anyone else because we're all too busy worrying about our own faults to worry about yours. Thanks for your amazing podcast that brings insight into this issue. Don't stop being you. I really want to thank you, Lee Potts, for this, and everybody else who actually commented on my dyslexia. I didn't actually think people would notice my comment, but there's actually quite a few that commented on that. But for the record, in the past, I have been heavily editing my audio. Call it a self-conscious thing, but I didn't like how I sounded. But lately, I think within the last couple weeks, I just didn't care anymore. I may still edit a little bit, just, in case my rambling goes on and on and on, but nowhere to the extent that I used to do. And to be honest, it's actually saving me a lot of time. Because I would literally spend 5 minutes editing one sentence because I didn't like how it sounded. In the early days of my channel, I think I listened to too many hater comments. But then again, my skin wasn't as thick then that it is now. So I really want to take this time right now to thank Lee Potts, as well as everyone else who has commented, telling me to keep going and just be myself. Okay, that's all I got for today's video. If you found any value in anything I said today, or you enjoyed the co-host coming in and then leaving, or you also want to hear more from a Canadian perspective, help out my channel by hitting the like and subscribe button below. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.